Hello friends, welcome to Eduta. Today we are going to discuss about the eligibility for RBI Grade B DR Journal exam. Why I am saying RBI Grade B DR Journal exam? Because there are other exams conducted by RBI under the name DEPR, DSIM, whichever different eligibility. So the eligibility that I am going to discuss today is basically for RBI Grade B DR Journal exam. Now, why we need to discuss the eligibility? The answer is that we keep receiving queries over phone or email where people are very confused whether they are eligible or not. The reason is that they are not able to decipher after reading the notification, or they are not able to find the relevant information in the notification because it being too long whether they are eligible or not. The second reason can be that sometimes the things itself are not clear in the notification, and it is left to you to ponder, to interpret whether you are really eligible or not. So I would be discussing about the eligibility, and I hope I would be able to answer most of the common doubts that arise in the aspirant's mind. Before I start with the eligibility, I would request you to subscribe to our YouTube channel in case you have not subscribed to, and you can join our Telegram channel where we keep sharing free content. The description of, or rather the link of Telegram channel is given in the description of this video. I would also like to make an important announcement that we are conducting scholarship admission test on 19th and 20th of June. This scholarship admission test will help you to basically gauge your preparation level. It will help you to win scholarships up to 30%, and you will also be able to know your All India rank through this scholarship admission test. In case you want to register for this test, I would request you to go to our website or download our app and you can register for this test. So let's come to business, that is discussing the eligibility. I would discuss the eligibility with respect to age, qualification in marks, and number of attempts, because these are the three most common areas where people are really confused. There are other areas such as nationality and all, but I think most of the people are clear about their eligibility with respect to those areas. So let's start with the age. Now, with respect to age, it is very clearly written in the notification that your age must be between 21 to 30 years in case of a journal category candidate. There are some relaxations for SC, ST, OBC that I'll discuss in the upcoming slides. So what do we mean by that? First of all, age should be 21 to 30 years. At what date this age is calculated? The answer is that the cutoff date for calculating your age is mentioned in the notification itself. Say the notification comes on, say, 25th of January, then the cutoff date to calculate your age that would be mentioned in the notification would most probably 1st of Jan of the same year. So the cutoff date is just few days of the notification date, right? So by this cutoff date, you have to calculate your age and decide whether you are eligible or not. So what is the exact meaning of date? 21 to 30 years. It means that you must have attained the age of 21 by the cutoff date. If you have not attained the age of 21, you are not eligible. And you must not have attained the age of 30 years by the cutoff date. If you have already attained the age of 30 years by the cutoff date, you are not eligible. In simple words, you already be 21 and you must not be 30. That's it, right? In case of journal candidates who have done MPhil, this is increased to 32 years. In case of journal candidates who have done PhD, this is increased to 34 years. Right? Now, apart from that, there are certain relaxations given to certain categories that we are going to discuss now. For SC, ST, relaxation of 5 years is there. For OBC, relaxation of 3 years is there. Right? That is, SC, ST, you can say, can give the exam even if they are 34 years of age. By the time they turn 35, they will also become ineligible. OBCs are given 3 years relaxation. Then ex-employees of banking institutions whose services were terminated due to recession in economy or the liquidation of the bank, they are given a relaxation of 5 years. And any person who has been retrenched from government service after serving for at least 1 year, he or she is also given a relaxation of 5 years. I hope this is clear. Next, moving to physically disabled candidates. So if you are physically disabled, your relaxation will depend upon which category you belong to. If you belong to, say, journal or EWS category and you are physically disabled, the relaxation that you will get is 10 years. If you are physically disabled and you belong to SC, ST category here, right, the relaxation that you will get is 15 years. And if you belong to physically disabled category and you are an OBC, then you will be given a relaxation of 13 years. I hope this is clear. So the relaxation, if you are a physically disabled candidate, will depend upon which category you belong to, and it will differ depending upon that. Now let's come to another set of very important points where people are really confused about. Since most of the people who give this exam are working in the bank, so this point is very important for you to understand. If you have an experience at an officer level, please note this word officer, not at a clerical level. Experience as an officer in a commercial bank or financial institution. Commercial bank or financial institution means financial institution can be LIC, commercial bank can be say SBI. So if you have an experience at an officer level in a commercial bank or a financial institution in public sector, please note down this word, not in private sector. So say if you have experience in ICICI, which is a private sector bank, then you will not get any relaxation under this point. Right? So experience as an officer in public sector bank or financial institution, then you would be eligible for a relaxation equivalent to your experience in that institution, but maximum up to 3 years. Right? And probationary period will not be counted. Please note that probationary period will not be counted. So what does this mean, guys? This means, suppose you have experience in SBI of 4 years. Out of that, 2 years are probationary years. Then your experience will be counted only as 2 years because probationary period will not be counted. So you will have 2 years of experience and you will get 2 years of relaxation. Let's take another case. Suppose you have an experience of 6 years, and out of that 2 years of probationary period, then your total experience will be counted as 4. So will you be given a relaxation of 4 years? The answer is no. The relaxation that you can get is maximum up to 3 years. So even if you have say 4, 5, 6 eligible experience, you will still get relaxation only up to 3 years. Similarly, on the same lines, if you have master's degree with experience in research and teaching in recognized Indian university or foreign institution or foreign university, then also you will be eligible for relaxation equivalent to your experience, provided probationary period is not counted and the maximum relaxation you can get is 3 years. So the logic here and here is the same. It's just the areas differ. Here your experience in public sector bank or public sector financial institution would be counted. Here your experience with master's degree in teaching or research would be counted. I hope this is clear, guys. This is very important point. We keep receiving queries related to this. Next is regarding if you are eligible for relaxation under 2 points, can you add them? Will it become cumulative? The answer is depending upon which those what are those 2 criterias that will decide whether you can add them or not. Suppose you are SC/ST and you have you will get relaxation of 5 years, and you also have experience and you can get relaxation of 3 years here. Can you add that? 5 plus 3, can you make it 8 years of relaxation? The answer is no. This is not cumulative. So most of the criteria that are mentioned here are not cumulative, except if you belong to physically disabled category, then along with this relaxation, that is either 10, 15 or 13 years, you can also club the relaxation for your respective category, that is SC, ST and OBC. That's it. This is only something which is cumulative, otherwise nothing is cumulative. So if you belong to physically disabled category and your SC, ST, you will get 15 years from here, 5 years from here, so your total relaxation will become 20 years. This is the only area where it can be made cumulative. Apart from that, you cannot add 2 different relaxations and made a combined one. No, that is not allowed. Right, this is clear, bit complicated, but that's why I took up this point to make it clear to you, because many candidates say they have 5 years of experience, they have 5 years of relaxation because they belong to SC, ST, and they have also worked in SBI for 3 years, and will their total relaxation will be 8 years? The answer is no. So we have discussed about age. Now let's move to qualification and marks. This is again something very tricky. Let's try to discuss this. Qualification. Under qualification, the eligibility is that either you should be graduate, right, or postgraduate. Please note the or here. It is not and, it is or. Right. Now let me detail it out for you. You will better understand it when I complete my point. So either you should be graduate in any discipline, or an equivalent degree to graduation. Maybe if you have done 3 years diploma, which is counted same as graduation, then also you will be eligible. And if you are graduate, you must have 60% marks under general category and 50% for SC, ST and physically disabled candidates. And please note that this is 50% for SC, ST and physically disabled candidates, not for OBC. Right? OBCs are not getting any relaxation here with respect to their marks. Right? So graduate with 60% marks when you are in general category or OBC category, and 50% marks if you are in SC, ST or physically disabled category. Or a postgraduate with 55% marks, minimum 55% marks in case of general or OBC, and pass marks in case of SC, ST or physically disabled candidates. Now let me again elaborate it so that you better understand. Suppose you have got, say, you belong to a general category and you've got 58% in graduation. Will you become ineligible? The answer is yes, you will not be eligible because you have got 58%, though they demanded 60% marks. But since here it is written as or, and you are also a postgraduate, you are a postgraduate with 56% marks. So in graduation, you got 56, right? This is less than 60, but in post graduation you got 56, which is more than 55. You become eligible because here it is mentioned as or. So either graduation with 60% or post graduation with 55%, you will become eligible. This is very important to understand, and there is no criteria with respect to your 10th marks or 12th marks. It used to be earlier, right? So in case you have bad marks in graduation, some people do, but you have good marks in post graduation and you have more than 55 and you belong to general or OBC category, you are still eligible, right? And the next point, which is very important to understand, is aggregate of all semesters years. So suppose there is a scenario where in one semester you just got 40%. Will you become ineligible? The answer is no, because here it is clearly written aggregate of all semester years. That is, the total aggregate will be counted, right? Now further there is definition given of graduation and post graduation. I'll not go into much detail of that. Graduation, basically they are saying that obviously you should be graduate or anything equivalent to graduation, which is a 3 years course and is done after 12th, then also you are eligible. And anyone who has passed the final examination for the membership of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, they are also eligible. Provided this condition will still hold, that 60% marks or whatever marks are given here. At post-graduation level, again, that if you have done some post-graduation work for at least 2 years, right, and it is or you have not done post-graduation, you have done something at least, you have done something else for 2 years, but that is equivalent to post-graduation, then also you will be eligible, provided you fulfill the criteria of 55% marks, right? Now, what does this mean actually? Suppose there are programs like postgraduate diploma in management. That's a diploma, that's not a degree, but that is taken as a degree, that is taken as an equivalent to a degree, that diploma. So then also you will be eligible, right? I don't think you need to go too much into this graduation or post-graduation level details. If you understand this point, that shall be sufficient for you to decide whether you are eligible or not, right? And under this point, please note, even if you have got less marks in graduation or more marks in, but more marks in post-graduation, that is more than 55% under your general category, you will be eligible. Or even if you have, say, less marks in post-graduation, say 50% in post-graduation, but 62% in graduation, then you will be eligible. So even if you fulfill the eligibility either in graduation or in post-graduation with respect to your marks, you will overall become eligible for this exam with respect to qualification and marks, right? Now, next, very important question. Now, in some of the universities or now colleges where you study, percentages are not given. Instead, CGPAs are given. Now, what will happen in this case? Because you will not know your exact percentage, whether it is 60% or whether it is 55%. The answer to that is, the notification says that, first of all, if that college or university defines a criteria to convert a CGPA into a percentage, you should use that criteria. Suppose you did your, say, graduation from X college, you got certain CGPA, and that X college defines that how to convert this CGPA into percentage, you should apply that criteria and you shall be able to find your eligibility. Next, it says that if your college or university does not specify any criteria to convert your CGPA into percentage, what you should do is you shall apply this criteria. 6.75 CGPA out of 10 will be equivalent to 60. 6.25 CGPA out of 10 would be equivalent to 55%, and 5.75 CGPA out of 10 would be equivalent to 50%, right? So in case you have got 6.78, you have got 6.78, it means you have got more than 60, you are eligible, right? So in case your university does not specify any criteria to convert CGPA into percentage, you can use this criteria, which is very clearly put here, that no, for 60% marks your CGPA must be 6.75 or above, right? Now next question is, what if my CGPA is not out of 10, it is out of 20? Some colleges do that, though I don't find any logic in doing that. They give you CGPA out of 20 or 15. So here the rule is very simple, that if you say have 15 CGPA out of 20, you convert it into out of 10. So out of 10 it would be 7.5, and then you can apply the same criteria, right? What I defined in the earlier slide. So that was with respect to notification and marks. Now we shall come to number of attempts. Number of attempts. Now there again there is a problem with respect to many people able to decide whether they are eligible with respect to number of attempts or not, because there are some people who have given a lot of attempts, or they have filled the form a lot of time, but they have not appeared in the exam. So let's try to discuss that. It's very clearly written that the number of attempts, right? Candidates who have appeared 6 times in the phase 1 examination will not be eligible to appear again, will not be eligible to apply for this exam. Now please note that word appeared, right? So the question that comes is, what if I applied for the exam but I did not appear in the phase 1 exam? मैंने फॉर्म भर दिया, मैं एग्जाम देने नहीं गया, बहुत लोग करते हैं, तो क्या वो मेरा अटेम्प्ट माना जाएगा? The answer is no, because it is clearly written you must have already appeared. Appeared means you must have attempted that exam. It's not about just applying. So count your attempts only if you have appeared in the exam, not applied, right? So in case you have filled your form 2 times but you went for the phase 1 exam only 1 time, only 1 attempt would be counted. So those attempts, if they are more than 6, or sorry, if they are 6, then you are not eligible to further apply for the exam. If they are less than 6, then obviously you can apply for the exam. So I hope your doubts with respect to number of attempts shall be clear from this word appeared, not applied, right? So I hope I would have taken some of the queries that might be in your mind with respect to age, qualification and marks, or the number of attempts, and I would have been able to clear it. So that's it for now, guys. I take your leave and I wish you all the best for your upcoming exams. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.